Hello. So, some of you may be wondering why I released A Barren World again, and why I changed it up so much. And the reason for that is actually because I read this novel recently. It was Sympathy for the Savage by Madeline Razzo, and it I don't even know what to say about it. It's just a really good book. It's actually Madeline's debut novel, which means that there are like a few mistakes here and there, but there are also a few things that I thought were mistakes, and that actually turned out to be like some seriously fun plot twists and tricks and whatnot. And basically, reading this book put like a spark back in my eye that I haven't had for a while. And so I've linked it in the description. I highly recommend it. And if you're wondering why I didn't include this in A Barren World, it is because I am silly. I had a whole thing recorded, written, everything was good, and then I just didn't put it in because I forgot I did it. Yeah. So I did feel pretty dumb off of that one. But now we're here with A Nightmarish Awakening, and I get to tell you not just about Madeline Razzo. No, I get to tell you about bread and Tsuma and Kaze. Yeah, I know, it looks like Kaze, it looks like wind, but it's Kaze, because he's goofy. And I also get to tell you about Zoella Fisher, my dear friend, and the primary source of the blooper reel. It's like 95% Zoella, and it's awesome. So do stick around for the end if you want to hear 7 minutes of cute people being cute. So yeah, see ya. With my eyes closed, I savored the air delicately. Sweat, cheap food and drinks, the gentle aroma of burning cedar torches, and a slight tang coming from the pile of ashes in front of me. A good time to progress to sound. The cheers of the crowd were all I could hear. They must love me or something. My eyes fell open. The eyes of the masses glittered in the firelight, all focused on me. It was a beautiful sight, but not quite as beautiful as I must be. My outfit was flawless, and my demeanor immaculate. I may as well have been walking on clouds. Welcome, one and all. I invite you here today to bear witness to a miracle. I have traveled far and wide, to Africa, Asia, and Badlands even beyond. I have learned from priests, scholars, madmen, and kings. And in the ever-distant sunless world of Psyche, where the ground and sky dance with each other in perfect unison, I learned an ancient technique known to no man before me. In that place, the man known as Daniel Smythe died, and I, Smythe the Ashen, was born. Now I have come here before you with magic most malign, to blossom as I breathe and bloom into a beautiful flower, I digress. I'm no politician or preacher, but a prestigious practitioner of prestidigitation. The crowd roared with delight. I knew they'd like that introduction. My silver tongue is as sharp as ever. I scooped the ash into my hands, forming it into a ball. One quick toss into the air, and I was spinning it upon my finger. Another poke, and it exploded in a cloud of dust, which lingered in the air. I took a few tentative steps, beginning my dance. With each step and flourish, every sway of my hips, the ash cloud moved with me. It was like water, gracefully flying through the air and mimicking my moves with perfect precision. My body and the ash were as one, and both were absolutely intoxicating. Cheers erupted from beyond the torches, and I danced along with their rhythm. I put a hand to my head and made a big show of fainting, the ash dropping alongside me. Just as planned, a woman in an ornate dress ran out from backstage. She held my head in her hands, and I woke up, as the audience would see it. She pulled me to my feet, and I turned back to the crowd, laughing sheepishly. That'll be my lovely assistant, Ingrid. Where would I be without her, eh? Behind every great man, indeed. Oh, Ingrid, darling, I have a favor to ask of you. I pulled her close and pretended to whisper in her ear, but we had already planned out this routine beforehand. It's what I was paying her for, after all. As she brought out a stool and sat on it, I stamped my foot and kicked the ash up into the air. In my hand it gathered to form a large knife. I called out to the audience. Now, Ingrid, bless her heart, is something of a thrill-seeker. She likes making little wagers, you see, just like every other fool who loses himself to gambling. The thing that sets Ingrid aside from the ordinary gambler is that while some bet their life savings, Ingrid here bets her life directly, just for the excitement of it. As you can tell, she's won every time. This one got more than a few laughs. Now I have a little wager with Ingrid. If I can hit her with this throwing knife, she will give me her massive estate. If I miss, then I'll simply pay her a whole lot of money. Gasps erupted from the throng of onlookers. Was I really mad enough to attempt such a game? Witnessing our little gamble was more than their money's worth, just for the sheer spectacle of it all. That is the spirit I wanted to create in this atmosphere. I suppose I was still a rogue at heart, though this gig certainly beat picking pockets by a long shot. Hearts were racing, even my own. Of course, Ingrid and I had already decided the outcome of this wager together, but that didn't stop me from enjoying the performance. One final touch, and I would throw it. I turned to the crowd, opening my mouth widely. Now, everybody! I'm getting a little nervous. I don't know if I can do this. She's a bit farther than anything I've thrown a knife at before, but if you believe in me, I'm sure I can deliver a pleasant result. Now, everyone, do you believe in me? They erupted into cheers, and I bowed slightly. As I did, I stepped into a pirouette and gracefully spun around to face Ingrid. With that same motion, I let go of the knife, watching it spin delicately toward her. Time seemed to slow, or at least my perception of it, as the blade arced gently through the air. Right as the knife touched her, I clenched my fist, and it exploded into dust. Ingrid was unharmed, but coughing up a storm. The crowd was downright feral. I guess I just didn't have the heart to harm such a lovely woman. Who knew? Ingrid walked up to me, covered head to toe in ash. All right, give me my money, she said, her voice hushed so as not to disturb the crowd. Well, I lost the bet. Still, I can't bear to see a beautiful woman covered in ash like that. Let me clean you off before we go. The crowd went silent, watching as I laid my hand on Ingrid's filthy cheek. The ash covering her all flowed upward toward that hand and into my sleeve. A few seconds later, the stream of ash emerged from my other sleeve, depositing a few bills in my hand. I passed them off to Ingrid, and the crowd erupted into rowdy cheers once more. This was the good life. I gave them a grandiose bow and left the stage for the night.
Clara. For the first time I could remember, Ben seemed agitated. He had been teaching me the ins and outs of their world ever since his old wounds healed. Money was no worry, as Daniel would always go out and bring home a tidy sum. Ben had offered to pitch in, but was too weakened to get a job, so he served as our maid, cleaning the house and cooking dinner for us every night. That's why it seemed so out of sorts for old Ben to be sulking around so, pacing back and forth while cursing under his breath. I had wanted to ask him why, but I was a little scared, so I just let it be. Seconds turned into hours as we waited, until finally we heard the door open. Ben rushed out to greet Daniel with a full head of steam.
And just where have you been, mister? I swear, it's been hours since you'd normally...
Ben's reprimand was cut short when he saw Daniel. Our friend was staggering around like a drunkard, his clothes torn and a cut on his forehead.
Not to worry, everyone. The other gentlemen look a lot worse right now.
Ben grabbed his hand, eliciting a gasp of either shock or pain from Daniel, and dragged him towards the bath. It didn't take Ben long to bandage him up, although I knew the clothes would take a lot longer to repair. Daniel regaled me with his adventures while Ben did his work.
It was that hussy Ingrid. 3 good shows with her, and suddenly it's, oh, I'm not getting paid enough for this, and I could do much better if you told me how to use the ash. Unbelievable, right? Well, I sure thought so. Tonight she brought her 5 brothers along to help convince me otherwise. Now 2 of them will never walk again, and the other 3 have lost any interest they had in life. My magic tricks aren't just for show. Ingrid ran before I could finish our business, but I'm sure I sent a clear message not to interfere again. I'll need another assistant. Hopefully someone more loyal this time. I should have one by the time Ben's repaired my outfit.
Ben scoffed at this. He sighed, slightly disheartened by Daniel's reliance.
You know, a right and proper tailor would be faster. I may still be weakened from last year, but I don't intend on playing the role of housewife forever. You won't need me forever either, Mr. Smythe. You're better than that. It'll take a bit before the bruises heal. Nothing I can do for the blunt trauma, but I've bandaged up your cuts nicely. You were right earlier. It'll take me a few days to fix up your stage getup. Your face, at least, should be healed by then.
With that in mind, I chose not to speak and simply rested a hand on each of their shoulders. Daniel leaned into my touch, while Ben simply ignored me and carried on. Daniel nodded thankfully. A thought was forming at the back of my mind. Can I be your new assistant? I had blurted out the question before I had even realized it. However, it wasn't an unpleasant prospect. Daniel looked me over, thinking to himself.
Yeah, maybe. We'll need to get you a proper dress or 2, though. I know you like my spare clothes, but the audience will demand something more elegant.
I was slightly disheartened, but I nodded anyway. Daniel smiled warmly.
Then as my assistant, I believe you can help me with something special I've been thinking of. You both know that I learned how to manipulate Psychoneuron ash, and that I took a little with me last year. I was just thinking, it's a rather tiny amount. It's easy to run short on tricks, and what if I lose it?
could see the sense in his arguments, but not his point.
I'm not sure I like where this is going.
Not to worry, Ben. I'm not going to put us in any danger at all. I just want to take a little trip back to Sycamore, see what's going on, and harvest a little more ash for my show. I won't be able to keep us rolling in money otherwise.
Ben considered it for a moment. I chimed in, hoping to settle the matter. Well, I wouldn't mind seeing how things are down there. Ben nodded slightly.
Yeah, it would be a good security check. If that rebel leader's still in charge, we're golden. But at the first sign of that woman, we run. Agreed?
I nodded.
Yeah, fine. I don't think we'll be seeing her again, though. I turned that fool into a puddle, remember? I'll even bring the knife I did it with, just in case.
Ben scoffed, but he was satisfied. In addition to Daniel's queen slaying toy, we also packed enough human food for a few days, as well as a stash of water. I felt a foul taste in my mouth whenever I recalled that filthy Saginarian tea, so I hoped to drink as little of it as possible. Ben clearly felt the same, as he made sure we had enough dried meats and non-perishables that we could eat anywhere at any time. Daniel carried the gear with him while I guided us through the cave system. Even a year later, I still knew these walls and tunnels like they were my own body. It wasn't long before we reached the rift.
All right, Daniel. Last chance.
When has that ever stopped us?
Daniel jumped into the rift eagerly. Ben shrugged, and I followed him into oblivion.
Mr. Smythe always was a confident man. No matter what situation we found ourselves in, he always came out on top, one way or another. Still, over the months, I realized that he kept some indifference toward consequences. He might get into a fight without considering who he was up against, or make a big promise that he couldn't keep. That part of him was always hard to understand. Mr. Smythe's the smartest man I know, much more so than me. Every time he talks with someone, I can see in his eyes that he always knows more than he lets on. So why wouldn't he act like it? No matter. As long as I live, I'll always be there to pick him up when he falls down. I'm his truest friend. I owe him my life, after all. What's with all this doubt, anyway? I'm thinking too much. I really should just let Mr. Smythe handle that for me. I slipped out of the void just then. Mr. Smythe and Clara were already on the other side. He was stuffing every pocket in his coat with ash. Ugh, same old Sycamore. It looked pretty at first, sure, but the world had a way of wearing a man down. It ain't right, not being able to see the sun every now and then. Right, I began, wanting to end this as soon as possible. Here we are, Mr. Smythe. Let's check out the city, see what's going on. I began, hoping that taking the reins would keep Mr. Smythe from being too impetuous. He wordlessly began the trek toward our goal, so I just sighed and followed along. It felt twice as long to reach the city. These aching bones must already be weakened. I haven't gotten much activity during the past year. Mr. Smythe was clearly feeling it as well, but Clara couldn't be any more chipper. The city itself looked different as well. It was a good bit bigger, and instead of ash, the wall around it was pure stone. A legionnaire stood at the gate. All right, now for the moment of truth. Mr. Smythe took the lead. He always was the best talker among us.
Hello! My name is Daniel Smythe, and I... Yes, of course. I heard about what you did from Aragus, same as everyone else. I'm honored to welcome you to our prosperous city of Sycamore.
The legionnaire pushed open the stone gate with a soft grunt of effort. Inside, it was beautiful. Houses dotted the landscape, formed out of ash or dug into the ground. The gray plants which dotted the landscape grew regularly within the walls, giving some life to the place. Large, hairless, cat-like beasts pulled stone carts filled with stone bricks, tools, bottles, or even parts of the gray plants. Bizarre, two-seated saddles were strapped to the backs of some. A legionnaire stood on every street corner, watching as civilians engaged in various forms of trade and craftsmanship. In what looked like a city square was a statue of 3 people. I couldn't make out who they were, but I trusted the gate guard's word. Closer toward the mountain, I saw a few men and women in ornate gray robes talking amongst themselves. Cloaked in the prettiest robe was the old man Aragus. He turned to face us, and a wide smile spread across his face.
Welcome, old friends. Glad to see you're still alive. What brings you to my humble abode?
Mr. Smythe took the lead again.
Aragus, you old dog. I don't love you or anything, but these two are just dying to see you, and I couldn't just turn them down now, could I? Besides, what's all this talk about us staying alive? You're the one with the whole world to run here. The 3 of us can handle our own affairs, but that's gotta be tough.
That's the good part. I don't need an iron fist or anything. I just guide these people in the right direction, and they practically lead themselves. Turns out, a lot of them were just happy to do their own thing again. Of course, I do need to step in to make sure we have enough Zathor to go around, and keep some of the feral beasts from preying upon my people. But I haven't had any open rebellions or wars since I took command. Old age must be loosening my tongue. It's sweet that you came to visit me, but you don't need to worry. As you can see, I've got everything under control.
Well, in that case, I guess we'll be leaving.
Nonsense! Stay a while. Taste some of our sake therein hospitality. I can show you around the city tomorrow. But it is getting a bit late, so we should try to sleep first.
I had no protests, and it seemed that Mr. Smythe didn't either. Aragus perked up.
I know a place where you can spend the night. Ordinarily, people would have their own home, but for those who can't manage or just like the company, we have public lodges as well. I'll show you to my favorite one, where I normally stay.
Weird, but Psychnerans always seemed very straightforward and honest to me, so it made sense. The lodge was a cozy little cave dug into the ground. It was illuminated by the burning fronds of gray plants, and little holes in the roof kept the smoke at a minimum. It had a big main area, with little tunnels dug for personal rooms on the sides. I was very tired, and Mr. Smythe had just about reached his limit as well. Even our bright and bubbly Clara was yawning, so the 3 of us took a room and passed out very quickly on the stone slab which the Psychnerans apparently used as a bed. As I was falling asleep, I realized that my back would either be perfect or ruined come tomorrow.
My head pounded, burning up as if I had a fever. I knew that I was dreaming, but couldn't force myself to wake up. I dreamt that I was once more in the throne room of Psychner, where the great mountain had been cut flat by something far more powerful. The lightning flashed as brilliantly as ever, and the thunder, like hammer blows directly to my cranium, only served to worsen my headache. Stranger still, I sat upon the ebony throne, as if I was the king of Psychner. It was then that I noticed a circlet around my forehead. Wait, this was probably the circlet that Lorgani wore. No wonder my head hurts. This thing doesn't belong on it. I gripped the stone tightly, forcing it off my head. Instantly, I felt a lot better.
Thank you for keeping that saint warm for me.
The circlet was lifted out of my hands from behind as my heart dropped into a pit of icy despair. That voice.
I'm afraid I'll need you to step aside, darling. The divinity sits there.
With that, a delicate hand ran down my spine. Reaching my backside, it suddenly gained overwhelming strength, forcing me out of the throne and into the air. I crashed into the ash, unharmed but terrified. I didn't think I could be more afraid, but when I looked back, the world seemed to split in two. Lorgani stood beside the throne, as radiant and powerful as ever. Her green left eye blazed furiously, and black blood dripped from her lips. Her face had only been halfway distorted when she was still alive, but most of it looked dissolved and bubbling now. Her skull only held a third of its natural shape. The rest appeared caved in. Worse still, the mass of scar tissue where her right eye should be oozed a sickly, clear fluid. Her thick black hair was matted and unkempt, falling down her back like a ratty cape. Her fingernails were long and filthy, a beast's claws. The ash she wore as a dress seemed now to cling to her very bones, and she couldn't even keep it up in certain places. Frankly, she looked as if she could barely stand. If true, that desperation only made her more dangerous.
You know, darling, you really messed up coming back here. You even let yourself fall asleep. It's like you wanted to pay me a visit or something. I understand if you do. We had some pretty good times, didn't we?
I shuddered. Lorgani sat down in the throne, putting her circlet back on. It hung loosely on what remained of her head. She was clearly enjoying this way too much.
Oh, Daniel, you look so cute when you're surprised. I was right to keep you. You'll make a fine thrall yet. I'm afraid I must reprimand you slightly, though. It's so irresponsible of you to spend so much time with little old me. You need a reality check. Wake up and smell the bloodshed.
With that exclamation, my dream came to an end. I was wide awake upon the stone bed. Ben and Clara snuggled up next to me. It was just a nightmare. To my horror, I saw something moving in the firelight. It was as if the shadows had come to life. Two of the city officials that I had seen Aragus with slunk into view, brandishing strange daggers. They looked like replicas of my own. I drew my true black knife, and they attacked. I grabbed one's wrist with my left arm, then flicked my blade toward her partner. The slash struck true, cutting the belly of the assassin. I turned my attention back to my current target, only to catch a punch to the gut. Even though she was a small woman, that Psyche-Neran muscle hit as hard as ever. I staggered back, trying to keep an eye on both targets. The one I had hit was rolling on the ground, and the active one was going in for a thrust. I sidestepped her attack, then called the ash out of my pocket. The cloud shot from my wrist into my assailant's eyes, and she screamed in pain. I worsened the wound by forming the ash in her eyes as spikes. The screaming must have woke Ben and Clara up, as they quickly disarmed and pinned the woman. I looked back to the other official, but he was dead. Little remained of him aside from his robe and a puddle, just like how Lorgani had died. Aragus rushed in, looking out of sorts.
What in blazes happened here?
His shout held no dishonesty or hesitation, so I doubted that these two acted under his orders.
You, Verisid, explain, now!
The woman, Vrisid, spat in his direction.
You're weak, Aragus. You always were, so just go back to hiding in the desert where you belong. We need a leader who doesn't fret over other species and puts the happiness of Psyche-Nerans first. You're too courteous to these pale weaklings. Lorgani had the right idea about how to treat them. We need her back, fool. We need...
Aragus cut her off quite literally, plunging a discarded knife into her throat.
You did well to slay these traitors.
Though I'm not quite sure where that second corpse is. Show me the weapon you used.
I didn't feel like hiding the black knife would do me any favors, so I pulled it out of my coat. Our goose jumped back.
Whoa! Be careful with that thing, will you? That might just be a very powerful weapon you've got there. The real thing, wherever it is. Something about Seknahiran blood just doesn't like what that's made out of. I've got a feeling your human friends wouldn't have any reaction to it. But cut one of us with that thing and we're dead. Just keep that thing away from me, okay? Take it with you when you go back to your world. It doesn't belong here.
I nodded, happy to go along with his request. I'm always ready for a fight, but something about liquefying people with one cut just didn't sit right with me. I couldn't exactly show him my ash powers, though. I remember him being really weird about Morgani last time, and didn't want him killing me or something over anything minor. So, what's this about Lorgani coming back? That's a pretty big concern for us. I turned the conversation around with that. My dream and these two? It couldn't be a coincidence. There was something else going on here. And whatever it was, I had to put a stop to it. That demon Lorgani. If she somehow survived my betrayal, I had to stamp her out here and now.
I admit, there have been a few who wanted to bring back the good old days, when Lord Gahani was in charge. They were crazy, but harmless, so I drove them out of the city instead of killing them all. Clearly, that was my mistake. I've been keeping them under surveillance, but those counselors must have been sleeper agents. That bit about fading light, one of their core teachings, it's unmistakable. It's shameful that even my own watchful eye couldn't spot them, but I intend to redeem myself. If they were willing to kill you so brazenly, then they can't be allowed to survive. I'll rally the Legion and put them to the sword. You can join me, if you wish. I can understand taking this personally.
Ben opened his mouth to protest, but I spoke faster. We'll join you. Lorgani needs to die. Not just her body, but any trace of her influence. Nobody gets to attack these two and walk away from it. We'll stamp out these cultists like the maggots they are. Ben shook his head silently, but I winked to him. Knowing him, he'd trust that I knew everything and that this was the best option. It couldn't be any farther from the truth, but I needed the faith of those around me. Clara knew how reliable I was, so I could count on her. Ben needed a touch of deception to inspire, but he was just as steadfast or more when properly directed. As expected, Clara agreed to go. Ben was hesitant, but he always succumbed to majority rule. Considering that Clara rarely ever disagreed with me, my word was nearly absolute. I felt a little bad dragging him along with us, but I knew that he would understand when I tell him my reasoning back home, when this is all over. Our goose seemed relieved, as if facing these cultists would be much easier with us alongside him. Well, Clara and I were experienced fighters, but I didn't know how well Ben had recovered from his injuries last year. He could be one push away from falling over, for all I knew. No matter, I'd protect him as well as I could.
I wasn't really sure why Mr. Smythe was so adamant about hunting down the cult, but I'm sure he had some reason or another. He enjoyed a good fight, but he wasn't truly bloodthirsty. He always did have our best interests in heart, even if he didn't always show it. I would trust him with my very life. It felt, to some degree, like that's what we were doing now. I was strong enough to fight with Psychoneered weapons, but I wasn't a very skilled fighter. Worse still, neither Clara nor I had brought weaponry along with us, so we had to borrow some from our goose. Clara would be fine with her stilettos, but the traditional Legion glaive was far from my weapon of choice. It was the heaviest armament in Psychoneer, though, so I hoped its weight would offset my lack of skill. I shouldn't have to fight much anyway. Aragus brought a detachment of 7 legionnaires, and he had even put on his old spiked boots and war cloak. Having seen them in action before, I knew deep in my heart that the cult didn't stand a chance. Aragus had already decided their fates. The only thing left was an execution. We marched through the faded ash for what felt like hours. Mr. Smythe, Clara, and I rode on 2 of those cat-like creatures, a Charon, as Aragus had called it, but the Psychoneerans marched on foot. I was feeling tired already, but the Legionnaires seemed like they could go forever, even in their heavy stone armor. They really were impressive. We passed rocks and valleys, sure, but I thought the cult would have some grandiose compound. Instead, it was a moderately larger dugout, like one of those Psychoneeran lodges. A simple, unassuming home. Aragus turned back to face us. He looked like a crow in that getup, but I already knew how sharp his talons were.
Men, we're drawing near. Remember that these are dangerous people. Unless they throw down their weapons and beg for mercy, kill them on sight. Whether they really can bring back Lorgahani, or if they're just brainless fanatics, it shouldn't matter if we kill them quickly enough. This will be a shock and awe operation. Once we reveal ourselves to them, we should assume complete control in a matter of moments. If you're all ready, then tie those Karens to a stake and let's get moving.
After doing as he said, it was time. Aragus ran ahead, a battle cry in his throat. A man in a gray robe walked out to see what was going on, but Aragus had already pierced his throat with a leaping kick. The legionnaires rushed in afterwards, and the cultists were quickly pinned within the compound. They fought like madmen, but their swords bounced off that thick legion armor without inflicting a single wound. I was quite happy to have them on my side. Mr. Smythe and Clara just sat in the back and watched. I went in for a few pokes with my glaive, but there was little I could do. Within a few moments, the handful of cultists that had interrupted us were dead. We proceeded further into the compound. The main chamber was deceptively built. It formed a massive cavern, like an amphitheater. Rows of seats all set above and around one big black stone throne. With a shudder, I imagined who might sit there. It was far from empty, though. Each seat in the amphitheater was filled. Some were the gray-robed cultists, others looked like Psychoneeran civilians. The cultists sat willingly, while the feet of the civilians were amputated. I was horrified by the lengths these fiends had gone to. Looking around hatefully, I espied a small man. He was plain in appearance, but carried himself like he thought he was Lord Gahani in the flesh. His robe was a darker gray, but not quite black. This must be their leader.
It's time.
He called, pulling out a knife. Aragus ran at him, ready for combat, but it was unnecessary. The priest plunged the knife into his own belly, falling over with a cry of pain. Confused, we looked around. The other cultists had dispatched the civilians they had kidnapped, and now turned their blades on themselves as they sat back down. It was a grisly, horrific scene, yet it all felt so fast. Aragus and the legionnaires tried to save a few, but their throats were cut, and they bled too quickly. In fact, it appeared as if the dark gray blood was flowing like rivers into an ocean of blood, with a throne in the center. Something felt off. Mr. Smythe, they aren't just killing themselves, I began, unsure of what was really happening. Mr. Smythe? I looked over at my friend, but he was even stranger. He observed with glassy eyes, as if there was no spark of thought within his body. Clara had noticed as well, and pulled at his arm, but he didn't notice. Instead of responding, he slowly walked out in front of the legionnaires. Aragus went in to grab him, but Mr. Smythe lashed out with a rapid punch. Aragus went flying across the room, something I never thought possible. We were all stunned. The legionnaires went to help Aragus, while Clara and I followed Mr. Smythe from a distance. As if he wasn't acting weirdly enough, he began to strip as well. I picked up his clothes as he went, trying to talk him down, but he silently insisted on full nudity. He stepped into the blood pool, his foot sending a gentle ripple throughout. It was like watching a granite surface jiggle. Mr. Smythe fell flat on his face. Clara and I rushed to his aid, but he flailed about wildly, rolling and splashing around the blood. We backed up, observing his tirade from a safe distance. Mr. Smythe let out a deep, ugly laugh, then began to slurp up the blood. He was barely recognizable, his skin and hair dyed gray, and his demeanor that of a feral animal. I could barely stand to look at him.
I had blacked out when I first saw the high priest kill himself. Now I felt as if I were trapped within my own mind. I couldn't see anything. The world around me was entirely black. I couldn't hear anything save my own screams. I could feel plenty, though. It was as if hundreds of whips were brought down on my body from all angles, every ounce of skin erupting in a fountain of burning agony. My mind was as sharp as ever, but I could feel that even my consciousness was taking some form of damage. The only thing I could sense now was pain. It began at my skin, but now it felt like the whips were cutting even deeper into my flesh. My very bones began to ache. It was as if my body was being broken down and stolen from me piece by piece. Something in the blackness began to take shape. That same woman, Lorgani? She walked out toward me, stepping gracefully on invisible platforms of oil and ink. She was beautiful in every sense of the word.
Come, darling. I know you feel the call of the blood. I felt it too once. That was a long time ago. But I did what had to be done. Can you do what has to be done?
Her words soothed me to the very core. I tried to reach out my right hand. Every muscle and tendon burned as I moved, but I couldn't stop now. I grasped her chin delicately and brought her into a gentle, loving kiss. That moment between us could have lasted an eternity, maybe two. Then I tipped her head back and sank my teeth into her throat. The blood flowed into my mouth like wine from a bottomless glass. Yes, this was the way. I jerked my head back, tearing a chunk of meat out of her and swallowing it instantly. As I looked back, I saw a smile on her face. Yes, this is what she wants. I'll partake in your glorious communion, Lorgani. The pain subsided, then came back even worse. I had to eat her up, devour her to the very bone to make it stop. I happily would, of course, anything for my divinity. I tore into her flesh again and again as we grew closer than ever before. Yes, oh, Lorgani, my love, I am yours, and you are mine. Oh, sweet, delicious Lorgani, your flesh is mine, and my flesh is yours. As I devoured the goddess, as I gulped her divine black blood by the gallon, I felt myself growing stronger. Each chunk of her flesh blessed my body 1,000 times over, as my very soul became more pure and holy. The pain subsided, replaced by the feeling of exponential growth. As I took her body into myself, my own body grew ever closer to perfection.
Clara. Daniel was still lapping up the blood. It looked as if it was having some effect on him. It was like he grew in size. His muscles were distorted, and the grey blood seemed to be seeping into his skin. I felt the urge to run to him, to help him, but I held myself back. Daniel wouldn't do this, not of his own free will. Something was controlling him. Was the cult victorious? Have they really brought back Lorgani? Sadly, that question would not go unanswered. Daniel finished with his feast, having drunk more blood than his stomach should be able to carry. He staggered to his feet, with his back still turned to us. Slowly and methodically, he disrobed the dead priest and wrapped the man's blood-stained robe around his waist. As he turned around, I saw Daniel's eyes. They were a bright, vivid green. The same green that had haunted my nightmares. It was burnt into my mind. Deep within, I knew who stood before me. I felt her name on my lips. Logani.
Hello there. It's good to be back.
It was still Daniel's voice, but it screamed to suit her tone. Seeing her smile on the body of my friend sent immeasurable chills down my spine. I felt like I might throw up. Logani laughed upon seeing how disoriented I was. Aragus was already on his feet, and the legionnaires had run out of the door. I grabbed Ben's hand and pulled him out. The legionnaires were waiting by the two carrots. Aragus mounted one, and I helped Ben onto the other. "Come on!" I shouted to the legionnaires, but they only turned back to face the compound.
They're too heavy to ride. Get moving.
I felt disgusted by doing so, but I knew we had to do as he ordered. I picked up the reins of the carron and urged it on. Aragus did the same. In the corner of my eye, I could just make out the legionnaires walking into a storm of ash and lightning.
Farewell.
It was a quiet whisper, but it was all I could manage to honor them with. Aragus rode out in front of us, taking the lead as we fled back to the city.
Our Karons were half dead by the time we made it back. I felt bad for the animals, but every second counted. My turn, I muttered under my breath. Ugbradil, the gate guard, had seen us approaching and opened the door early. We slowed as we entered the city, but I didn't stop. Everyone, to the square, now! Take everything you need to survive! Legionnaires to the square! Aid our civilians! We need to evacuate! My shouts rang through the entire city as I rode through the streets. Ben and Clara joined in, repeating my call. It took all of 5 minutes for the hesitation and debates to subside. The entire population of Sekenir was gathered in the town square. My friends, I began. Logahani has been reborn. She wears the face of a fallen hero, and she'll soon be upon us. You all know what horrors she forced upon us when she held the position of divinity. You all know how hard we fought to depose her, especially those of you who once fought alongside me. Unfortunately, the time has come where we must forsake our city and take shelter elsewhere. My spies have been scouting the wasteland for a while, and they have told me of a secondary shelter far from here. It was built during the Great Divinity War, and though they're old and abandoned now, the ruins are still sturdy enough to be a suitable home for us. I didn't want to need them, but we have no other choice than to relocate there as quickly as we can. I hope you'll continue to trust me as your leader. Immediately, a vulgar legionnaire came up to me and spat in my face.
You talk big, but you're just a coward, aren't you? Lorgani or no Lorgani, any real divinity would stand and fight for the sake of his people.
I sighed, almost regretting appointing him captain of the Legion. As hot-headed as ever, aren't you? I'm not ordering anyone to follow me, but I refuse to let innocent civilians die just because they can't handle a fight. Stay here if you want to. Keep the whole Legion, I don't care. Anyone who remains here will either be enslaved or cut down. There's no room for argument. Not for any one of you out here. Choose me or choose death. Any Sekenir with a brain, ready the carrons and load your carts with as much food and as many people as they can carry. The captain rallied his own legionnaires for a last stand. It was sad, but I didn't have time to care. I had the old guard, those veterans and assassins on my side. They would have to suffice as far as defense. Aside from that, most of our people were farmers and stonecutters, good at surviving, but useless in a fight. If Lord Gahani caught us unaware, it would be over in seconds. I supervised the preparations, and in what felt like a brief moment, we had a full convoy ready for transport. My intelligence service and I led the way, along with the toughest fighters I had. Ben and Clara would serve as a rear guard. The rest were civilians, riding in their carts. "Let's move out," I gave the order, but didn't feel any more ready than when we began packing. I searched my soul for some aspect of motivation or hope, but I was hollow. All I could do was march on and protect my people. That thought alone coursed through my mind as I watched the last of the carts set out into the great unknown.
I'm a simple man. I wear the armor of the Legion, and with it I keep my city safe. 2 years of managing this gate, ensuring that our people pass through unhindered since the day it was built. That's all I really can do, so I ensure that I do it well. With the ruthless monster approaching in the distance, I felt a deep, true fear run through me. I almost panicked and ran, but the old Legion vows came back to me now. I began to repeat them out loud. To serve the city and realm of Psychneer, to obey my divinity, or the one affecting the role, to be as one with my brethren in arms. We are Legion, and as such, we serve. I whispered the words deliberately, but even so, they steeled my nerves. If I die here, I'll die standing, like a proper man. The twisted being closed in. It wore the body of a man I saw once, whom Aragus had hailed as a hero. Still, that demeanour, that fire in its eyes, left no room for doubt. This was Lorgoni, through and through. Bravado was the only thing that kept me steadfast, so I embraced it. "You don't belong here," I shouted, readying my weapon. "Upon the honour of the Legion, the city of Psychneer will not fall today." Lorgoni looked back at me, pondering my words. She then sat down on the ground and closed her eyes. This caught me off guard, but I didn't move in to attack. Knowing how unrelenting she had been while in power, I suspected a feint and looked around, waiting for some sneak attack. No such blow came. Instead, Lorgoni stood back up and came closer. I jumped back and plunged my glaive toward her in a quick series of thrusts and slashes. She dodged them all with ease, taking not a single scratch. Her hand flicked out, almost faster than I could see. With a soft grunt of effort, she snapped the bladed tip of my weapon neatly off. I brought the blunt end around in a vicious slam, but a cloud of ash blasted up from the ground, knocking the handle of my weapon away. I heard the cracking before I felt it. A burst of pain erupted in my belly, and the air forcefully left my lungs. She had punched cleanly through my stone armor. I staggered back, and wondered just how I was still able to stand. That question was answered instantly, when Lorgoni gently pushed me to the ground.
"How uncivilized,"
she jeered. I was in too much pain to protest as she knelt beside me. She continued speaking as if I could hear her clearly over my heart pounding.
"You, Dreg, are very lucky. There's something ever so special about the circumstances we have found each other in. Inside you is a warm, beating heart. Do you know what it's like to feel a heart? I could show you now by ripping out yours, but a corpse is no good to me. No, the true beauty of hearts is that they allow for love. Have you ever been loved? Yes, you have been loved. I love all of my loyal subjects. You're meaningless on your own, but my love is what gave you the strength to wear that holy armor and fight in my name. Right now, I need your love, your strength. I need your heart to beat in time with my own. I need the love of my people to give me the strength to carry on. Can you feel them, the hearts within that city? Their minds are weak, easily fractured, but their hearts are true to their divinity."
What was she saying? The Legion was stronger than that. She talked a big game, but the worst she could do was kill us. Right? I listened closely and heard something awful. Rhythmic thumps in unison resonated in my mind. I could hear the heartbeat of every psychic neuron within the city, and they were all perfectly synchronized with that of Lorgani. Worse yet, along with that hideous drumbeat, Lorgani's true voice resonated in my mind as well. A horrific choir that drowned out every hint of my own thought.
Join them as a part of the flock. Praise me with all of your might, and love me with all of your heart. And then only I will have the strength to keep you safe. You need a divinity. You need me.
Her pure sweetness washed over me like a wave of ash, but I still resisted. I am a living wall. I need a divinity. I need Lorgani. Just as that realization came to me, my will broke. I gave up everything. My face, my name, my body, all to the glory that is Lorgani. Unable to move, I watched as my precious divinity slipped into unconsciousness beside me, and joined her in the inky black abyss.
I awakened in the throne room, my head burning so hotly I could barely think. Opening my eyes, I saw Lorgani in the throne, similarly disoriented. She shook her head, and I felt the pain in my own subside. Still not used to this, are we? I cast the barb out, hoping that she would tell me some important information in response. This is a new experience, and I need to learn as much as possible. Instead, she simply nodded. She must have sensed my intent. I probably can't even think without her hearing every thought.
You finally understand.
I couldn't figure out why, but then an idea came to me. What if she overexerted herself? My body only had some of her blood. I wasn't pure like her old self. Perhaps that trace of humanity limited her control of the world around us.
Sadly, yes. You're very perceptive, though. It won't do you much good from within this cage.
Confirmation from the divinity herself? She either didn't perceive me as a threat anymore, or just felt that we should both be on the same page.
Both. But there's a part you're refusing to acknowledge. Your humanity weakens me, holds me back. It would be so much easier for both of us if you just stopped thinking and let me handle that side of things. You can just sit here and look pretty.
I feel violated. Get out of my head, get out, and just talk with me. Lorgani didn't make a move. She just sat there, grinning smugly. Thank you.
You're quite welcome, Daniel. I'm more than willing to be civil with you. Your comfort is entirely dependent on your actions, darling.
The implication made me shudder. No, I can't let her get to me. I need to counterattack. Lorgani stood up.
Let me tell you a story. Back when I was just a cute little girl with no idea how the world worked, I always felt a connection to nature, you see. The ash beneath my toes, the lightning dancing over my head. I would often find myself dancing along, kicking up clouds in the process. One day I realized that the ash was dancing alongside me, and I went to tell my parents. My father was terrified of me, knowing that I had the potential to become a divinity. We hadn't had one of those since we were forced underground, and it was the last divinity who caused that calamity. My father, may his soul be at peace, tried to cut me down to protect this world. My mother stepped between me and his blade and died instantly. A bolt of lightning shot through him a second afterward, before I'd even realized it.
Something was off. You're lying, aren't you? The words left my mouth before I could consider them properly. Lorgani gasped, looking at me.
What? How could you tell? Our kind were forced underground by the last divinity's actions, and I'm quite fond of dancing, but the rest is a total lie.
I couldn't tell any difference between her lie and her usual speech. It was purely instinctual. I didn't know if I could catch her in another lie, and even if I did, she could just deny it, and I wouldn't have any means of further investigation. I felt my face go red. I punched the ground, frustrated at my impotence. My mind was my only real weapon against such threats, and this abominable witch could see right through me at all times. I truly was defeated. Wait, that was it. I need to rescue this situation from absolute defeat, and the best way to do that is with a compromise. I stood up and approached her, knowing I would have to speak unprompted to gain a proper reaction from her, without premeditation on either side. Lorgani, you said that you're more than willing to be civil, that my comfort is dependent upon my actions. Allow me then to propose our joint comfort through the most civil of actions, a deal. I offer you full control of my body for every other day, and to ensure that you are left unharmed within my body. In return, I request full control of my body every other day, and for you to swear on your sacred black blood that you will not harm anyone ever again. Even if we are attacked unprovoked, I expect you to leave such matters up to me. We can negotiate a little, but I wish not to stray too far from those terms. What do you think? Lorgani paused for a moment, clearly surprised.
I think you're desperate, love. Desperate enough that you think such a lie will sway me.
Uncertainty dominated her voice. No, Lorgani. I don't know if I'm making the right choice, but I can't truly deceive you when you're embedded this deeply in my mind. As far as I know, your blood is the only thing you truly hold dear. If you swear upon it to uphold my terms, I'll choose to believe you. Upon whatever scraps of dignity and honor I have left, that is my promise to you. Lorgani sat back down in her throne and rested her head in her palm for a moment. I used to be a scoundrel, sure, but I refused to promise anything unless I truly meant it. I don't understand Psychoneran customs on such things, but I could only hope that they were similar enough for Lorgani. Hope flared in my heart as I saw her stand up and walk toward me. She got on one knee and reached a hand up to stroke my cheek. A tear formed in my eye at the thought that this could still have a peaceful resolution. A harsh slap from her brought me back to reality. Yeah, you got me. Laugh it up. I had hoped the sardonic outburst would restore some of my dignity, but I only felt more ashamed.
You should know me better than that. I only tolerate absolutes. My absolute power, your absolute submission, and the absolute lack of treason or dissent within my beautiful world. Anything less is unacceptable. That is how I ensure my safety, my ability to live another day. Honestly, you are so disappointing. I really thought that you would understand me better by now.
A shame. There went my last chance at even a partial victory. Wait, I should know her better? Does that mean I have some access to her mind as well?
Besides, your word is worthless to me. I know your true nature. You're nothing in the face of this world, darling. You're too brash to hold governance, too cowardly to become a soldier, and too weak to be a worker. You're only alive because you have an aptitude for unsavory practices. Daniel Smythe, the prettiest rat in the gutter.
Her taunt cut deep, deeper than I would ever care to admit.
Rage filled my mind, blinding me to all else. Just when I thought I couldn't grow any angrier, the foul goddess opened her mouth again.
You should be more grateful, dear. I'm giving you righteous and honest purpose as my slave. You move in sync with my thoughts, and you only think what I allow you to. Even here in your own head, I can strip you down and hurt you in ways you never thought possible. How might you like the sensation of being skinned alive? Or to feel all of the lightning of psychic near course through your precious nervous system? Under different circumstances, I could do all that and more to your body. But I find it infinitely more pleasant to punish your mind directly.
The nerve! I'll show her pain! No, I won't. I would if I could, but my last chance was just squandered. How useless could I be? No, I'm worse than useless. I'm the reason that I lost my body. I'm the reason that the only two people who ever liked me are running for their lives. If I never came back here, we would all be safe and happy, but no. I just had to get greedy, had to put us all at risk. At that moment, I wished she'd hurt me just so something could make sense.
No, Daniel. You're not a masochist, so I don't think you really want that.
Lorgani's voice was dripping with concern. It almost felt real.
No, you want to submit to me. You like my control. When I lift your hand and cut down a man, you don't feel a thing. It's not really your hand, is it? No, it's mine. My hand. My will. My actions. You're already mine, and you love it because through me, your guilt is absolved. You love the immense power I hold over you, and you love to obey my every whim. You love your divinity with all of your heart, and your faith shall remain absolute until the end of time. The sooner you realize this, the sooner I'll be able to save you from the diseased human blood, and then we'll be able to shine even more brightly than we did before. We'll be as one, in mind, body, and soul. There's no more room for hesitation, doubt, or betrayal. We can finally begin to trust each other. Wouldn't that just be the greatest feeling ever? Now, embrace your salvation.
I fell to my knees. Lorgani towered over me, smiling with the warmth and radiance of a benevolent goddess. To my brain's horror, my mouth began to move. I love the power you hold over me. I love to obey. I love my divinity with all my heart, and my faith shall... No! I felt my brain burst into flame, synapses burning with every syllable. My faith shall remain non-existent. I am a man of no faith, none whatsoever. The dirt under my fingernails is more sacred than you. Get out of my head. Don't touch me, don't control me, don't even speak to me. Just don't!
Pathetic.
Lorgani spat on me, kicking me in the gut. All the air was knocked out of my lungs, and I choked on my own lack of breath.
It seems I'll need to break you a little further. As fun as this little game of attrition is, I'll never get anything done if I sit around and play with you all day. I've already reclaimed my home. Now I just need to purge the invaders. Let's go and have a chat with your two friends. See if I can't kill both of them with your very own hands.
I wanted to fight, to resist and slow her down, but I was spent.
I thought I had a chance, but it all seemed so far away now. A deep slumber overtook me as I sank deeper and deeper into her grace.
I leaned into Clara's back, feeling her legs tense and relaxed as she urged the Karen beneath us with gentle kicks. I tried desperately to lose myself in the movement, to clear my mind and stop thinking. It shouldn't be this hard for me. I've never been all that clever. So why? Why can't I get these horrific images out of my head? Why won't my wound stop aching? Why is Mr. Smythe, the first person that I could ever call my friend, so hell-bent on taking my life? Or was he even alive anymore? It's possible that he's gone now, nothing more than a mask for that cruel woman who compels his empty body to move. No, I mustn't think such things. I'll only sink into despair if I let my mind roam any further. I need to focus on what matters most. The girl in front, noble and inspiring. The beast below, powerful and loyal. The ash cloud on the horizon, drawing ever closer. Wait, that shouldn't be happening. I felt only the wind from moving quickly, but the cloud was coming from behind. Clara! Behind us, I said, with a bad feeling in my gut. She looked back, over my shoulder, then gasped. She dug her heels into the Karen's flanks, and it lunged forward, almost throwing me off.
That's her! Volcani!
I looked back and squinted. She was right. I could see a faint outline of a person, carried along by the raging dust storm. Despite the Karen's desperate sprinting, the menacing cloud behind was still gaining on us. I tried to look forward, shielding my eyes from the wind with one hand and clutching my last friend in the other. It looked like we were coming up on an immense canyon. One stone bridge spanned the gap, but no other points of crossing could be seen. I remembered something that Mr. Smythe had told me long ago. We had just left the ashen wastes, and I was distraught. I had survived, sure. However, I was too injured to keep up with the others, and I had done so little to help them, when that was what Mr. Smythe had brought me in for the first place. I had known sadness, but it was only now that I felt truly useless. Mr. Smythe must have noticed this, because he slowed down to match my pace. After examining me, he began to ask questions. I answered them honestly, as I didn't have the energy to deny him. Then he said something utterly wonderful.
There's a time and a place for everything, Ben. You've done enough. There may come a time when everything depends on you, and you'll know exactly what you need to do. That time simply hasn't come yet. Never underestimate the power of one good man, my friend. Until then, live on and just do what you can.
Such a splendid man. He was a good friend, and I knew now that he was right. I snapped out of my nostalgia to see that we were almost across the bridge. I didn't have much time, and neither did Clara if I hesitated any further. I leaned in close and shouted into Clara's ear, "Keep running!" With the hope that she wouldn't turn around, I drew a hefty stone claymore from its sheath on the saddle. She looked at me with fear in her eyes. I sprung off of the Karen's back, diving away from its mighty paws, and rolling from the sheer force of hitting the ground. The soft ash did very little to keep me from being battered and bruised. Even so, I knew I could still fight. I took one last look at the retreating Karen, which already looked really far away. Exhaling tiredly, I turned back to face the dust storm. The massive clouds slammed into me like a train, knocking me down and filling my lungs with ash. My eyes burned, and I coughed violently. The storm, however, was over as quickly as it had struck. Darkness surrounded me, particles stagnating in the air. It would have been serene if not for the effect that it had on me. I rubbed my sore, puffy eyes and coughed up the last bit of dust. Couldn't afford any more setbacks. The cloud was gone, but the true storm was just beginning. My target stood on the bridge. What once was a good friend of mine. Something that could now no longer be given the dignity of being called a man, a woman, or any sort of living being. No, my friend is already dead. All that remains is giving him a proper burial, and letting him rest in peace. It strode up to me with the same confident manner that Mr. Smythe once held. For a second, tears welled in my eyes. From the ash or the pain, I couldn't tell. It didn't matter. No more tears until it's all over.
Well, well.
The monster spoke. Her voice sounded almost exactly like her true self now, with only a touch of his presence left. I almost broke, but retained my strength.
What now? I kill you and your allies escape? Or are you delusional enough to think that you might win this fight? You wouldn't be that stupid, would you? Your precious Daniel Smythe certainly thought so little of you that even I was surprised.
No more. I won't allow this monster and its lies to hurt me anymore. I said nothing, choosing instead to calm my breathing and raise my sword.
Oh my! How frightening! You're just as idiotic as I expected, but your strength is commendable. It's almost a shame that you're going to die here. In fact, I might have even considered sparing you if you'd dropped that tiny little knife sooner. You should know that I don't like needless killings. We both know there's no other way that this will end. So let's just get this over with.
The foul demon before me gave one last sigh, then formed a long blade in its hands from the ash in the air. I struck first, bringing my weapon overhead, and a heavy downward slash. It dodged my blow and followed up with a punch to the back of my head. The beast's fist hit me with so much force that I lost my vision for a second and almost fell. Staggering out of the way, I felt a shallow cut open on my side.
Try harder!
I turned to face my attacker, just in time to throw my sword up in an attempt to block a wild horizontal slash. The fiend's strength forced my blade aside, and only the distance which I had stumbled kept me from being decapitated. As it unleashed a flurry of severe blows, I barely kept from being sliced in two. My arms felt like jelly after blocking those attacks, and I had taken cuts all over my body. Nothing that could kill me yet, but I knew it wouldn't be long before my strength would run out. I had to turn this fight around, or it was already over. I was going to die here. This was something I had come to accept. So why did I waste time trying to avoid being hurt? No. This was always going to end in bloodshed. And all I can hope to do is spill as much of that monster's oily blood as my own. I looked at the demon before me and smiled, a sweet, innocent grin. As I calmed down, I let my words flow openly, straight from the heart. I've always tried to be good. All my life, I've only ever wanted the peace of knowing that I'm a good man. Now I see that I am, but a much better man came before me, and now you're walking around wearing his corpse. This isn't a place for good men to live. It's a place for good men to die. You're right. I am going to die here. Even so, I don't feel any regrets. All I can do now is hurt you, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. The hollow demon smiled widely, as if in approval and mockery at the same time. It raised its blade, already dripping with blood. I brought my own back up as well, gripping it tightly with both hands. No more hesitation. I let out all the rage in my heart, anger at the pain I had been put through, hatred of the soulless abomination, and grief at my friend's downfall. All pushed my blade forward, and I became mesmerized by the clashing of swords. The demon parried my strokes adeptly, but I continued my assault. Nothing could make me relent now. I was pushing it back. I was winning. Then I misread the demon's movement for just a second. I had only enough time to register my mistake before my right hand soared in front of my face, no longer attached to my elbow. Blood spurted everywhere, and I screamed, stunned by the sheer agony of my wound. It was meaningless, though. I had nothing left to lose but my own life, so I clenched my left hand around my blade and threw my entire body and soul into one heavy, final thrust. The demon almost reacted, but for that brief second, I was unstoppable. My blade rammed into its gut, spilling gallons of that foul, viscous oil. My target wasn't dead, but I wasn't about to let my advantage go to waste. Pushing with all my might, I used the sword to slide the monster over the edge of the bridge, casting both demon and weapon into the abyss. It was over. I had won. I collapsed to the ground, clutching my wounded arm and sobbing. I pulled myself up to my knees, shouting out thanks in between my tears. Thanks for the life I had been given, and the purpose I felt. Thanks for being so lucky as to face death over and over again, only to live to see another day. Thanks for allowing me to meet such wonderful people like Mr. Smythe. Thanks for giving me the strength to avenge the dead and save the living. Thanks for letting me exist at all. I saw movement through my bleary eyes. The ash in and around the canyon was floating upward and spinning around like a gentle, wide tornado. The walls of the vortex thickened, and lightning flashed above. I wiped away my tears and gazed into the ash. It was faint, but I could see the outline of a person floating around in the ash. No, not a person. A hollow, lifeless demon. So was it all meaningless? My efforts? My passion? My pain? As the demon danced flawlessly between the clouds, attracting bolts of lightning, my answer became clear. It wasn't meaningless. Because of me, others could live on, free from this pain for just one more day. I did what I could. As the thing that was once my friend fell out of the sky, charged up like a battery and diving towards me, I closed my eyes and let myself sink down into sweet nothingness.
Clara. This couldn't be happening. I saw Logani go over the ledge. She should be dead. Why wouldn't she just die? Why must I? This was it. My only two friends in this life died before my very eyes. Now it's my turn. Logani simply cannot die. I looked up and saw not the corpses of my two friends, but a goddess accepting a sacrifice. Ben knelt there, or what was left of him. The shock of the lightning had rendered his body a scorched, crisp replica of a human, and I could feel that his mind was completely gone. Worse yet, I could smell the blood and burnt tissue in the air. It was almost enough to make me cry, but I couldn't cry yet. I had to keep fighting. I never cried back then in those caves, so why should I show such a useless display of emotion now? I had to fight, because it's all I am. I tried to learn to be human, but that was a mistake. I am at my best as a simple beast, fighting and killing and gorging itself on corpses. One more time, I had to lose myself in the clashing of blades. Once more, I would dance that fateful waltz. All of my thought, all of my logic, was leading me to that conclusion. So why was I crying? Why did the tears flow so perfectly? It didn't matter. I drew a knife, running at Logani. She smiled at me, watching as I drew closer. Right as I was about to plunge the knife into her, into Daniel's corpse, she reached out a hand. With one finger, she flicked Ben's head cleanly off. This was too far. I couldn't do it. I lived a life of pure combat, but I couldn't even die fighting. I just want this to be over. Send me wherever Ben and Daniel went. Logani, I want them back.
Gladly, darling. I'll show you that mercy. I'll even be quick about it, as a parting gift.
Logani jumped high. The whirlwind of ash tightened to catch her again, and pulled her into the sky. Lightning flashed as Logani summoned her power. With an elegant flourish, the ash fell down, and Logani came swooping down with it. Her hand was outstretched, and I could see the burst of light, ready to carry me into my absolute fate. For the first time in a while, I felt truly happy. That's when it all fell apart. A burst of ash came out of nowhere, hitting Logani in the chest. Her movements were unbalanced, and she crashed into the bridge quite a distance from me. I felt the electricity run through the bridge and the air. It hurt, but it didn't kill me. Why would Logani change her mind? Daniel, is that you? The words left my mouth instantly. Someone responded.
No, I won't let you hurt her!
What was this? Was Daniel protecting me from Logani, or Logani from me? Either way, he was alive, and that was enough. The ash seemed to rise again, pulled towards Daniel, or Logani, or whoever was in control right now. I could see, faintly in the ash, that they had wrapped their waistcloth around their right arm, and the ash was forming around it as well. It was like they had formed an immense weight within that hand, but for what purpose? Slamming the ashen boulder down, they broke directly through the bridge. The stone tumbled up from underneath us both. The ash reformed a whirlwind, pulling what I assumed was Logani to safety. I only continued to fall. I splashed into some sort of river. Luckily, it was deep enough that the bottom didn't turn my bones into jelly, although I definitely felt like it had. In fact, my whole body felt as if it was burning. I quickly dragged myself to shore, then checked myself for injuries. Plenty of bruises, cuts, and scrapes, but I didn't think any bones were broken. However, I did notice some sort of film on my skin. I scratched at it with my fingers, then with a sharp rock. Nothing could get it off me. Worse yet, it seemed to be draining my energy the longer it clung to me. Was this how it ended for me? I had wanted to die before, but something about this film just felt too ignominious. I refused to die in such a shameful manner, and after someone worked so hard to save my life. Still, it had seemed as if my final burst of willpower was for nothing. The poisonous film overtook me, and I sank into a deep, dark ocean of bliss.
I'm afraid... And then only I will have... or to feel all of the lightning. Oh shit, how do I say that? Johnny?
But hey, I'm getting off track here. You can bring me food and water? That would be so cool, man.
Oh my god, I'm getting off script so much.
Oh no, it's Logani! Logani, no possessing! Logani, no possessing! Logani, no possessing! Aw, man! Her movements were unbalanced because she has a skill issue. And then she died like a fucking noob. The end. Logani should go to hell. Logani should go to the ninth circle of hell. Or maybe Satan can specifically make a 10th layer of hell because that ain't deep enough for her. Da, da, da. I don't know how to voice act. Daniel, is that you? Oh my gosh, the main protagonist! Ah! I don't know how to voice act that. Daniel, is that you? Daniel, 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 Daniel. The words left my mind. Sorry. The words are not, they're not working. The words left my mind. No! I could see faintly in the ash that they had I could see faintly in the ash that had they. Meow! The poisonous film took over. That's her. Look. I'm a fraud. I don't know how to say the line. No. That's her. Look, got it. Da. That's her. Look, honey. Oh no. I am going to need a bathroom break. I am terrified. Can you tell how terrified I am of this being called the Lorax? That's her! Look, honey! Work, please. No. Okay. no, 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 no. It's her. It's her. It's her. That's her. Oh, so when I say it in a normal tone, it doesn't work for you, microphone. But when I don't, when I actually do the intended tone, you get cut out. How am I supposed to have multiple takes like this, huh? That's her! Malkani! The end is never the end, it's 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 never the end. No, no, oh, fuck. That's her! However, guys? However, I did notice some sort of film on my guys. However, I did notice some sort of film on my skin. I scratched at it with my fingers, then with a sharp rock. Nothing could get it off me. However, I did notice some sort of film on my skin. I scratched at it with my fingers, and then with a sharp rock. Nothing could get it off me. Nothing could get it off me. Typo. Nothing could get it off me. Off. Worse yet, it seemed to be draining my energy the longer it. Was this how it ended for me? I had wanted to die before, but something about this film just felt too ignominious. So the long pause was me looking up how to pronounce ignominious on Google. God damn it. Okay. Ignominious. 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 Mickey. Dude, would Clara even know that big of a word? I mean, she doesn't. I mean, I guess she got. Wait, no. Clara wouldn't know big words like this, would she? Maybe did Daniel teach her that well? Daniel isn't even at home that much to homeschool her? I think. Flip you. Ignominious. 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 It seems so ignominious. It seems so ignominious. Ignominious. Okay, I finally got it. I'm still not happy. One day, Johnny, I'm going to have you narrate a line that says something ridiculous like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Oh, something like that. I'm not sure. I'll figure it out. I'll pull out the thesaurus just for this one bit, and I'll somehow make it make sense. Yeah! The end is never the end, it's 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 never the end. The end is never the end, it's 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 never the end. Oh, come on, man. Record the thing, microphone. Stop cutting off when I'm doing a dramatic voice line. And I do it perfectly. And then, ooh, whoops, I didn't record it. Fuck you, microphone. You're new. Work with my new computer. Damn it. That's her. Look, honey.